Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, distinguished guests and viewers around the world, thousands of scientists and doctors and hundred thousands of well-informed people worldwide are speaking out loudly. This is the greatest danger humanity has ever faced. Stop the mRNA vaccines. We must independently verify the facts about excessive death rates, chronic diseases, autoimmune problems, and high infection rates, especially in countries with high booster and vaccination rates. Further mRNA vaccines must be stopped until the 14 theses in the 4 pages of the moratorium have been proven beyond doubt. Welcome to this historic international press conference, The World Journey of Truth about mRNA Vaccines. My name is Dr. Dirk Seeling. I'm a psychologist from Germany, and I'm moderating this unique event. Today, we make the second step of the journey. After having a conference with German-speaking countries 2 weeks ago, we gather voices from every continent, 33 speakers representing science, medicine, law, ethics, and public health, united by a shared commitment, the pursuit of truth and transparency in science and medicine. Over the past years, mRNA vaccine technologies have transformed global health policy, public discourse, and individual lives, yet critical questions remain unanswered. Questions that touch the very foundations of medical ethics, safety, and human rights. So this conference is not driven by ideology, but by evidence, not by fear, but by responsibility. Our mission is clear: to examine the global impact of mRNA vaccination policies, to present independent scientific analysis, and to issue a unified international call for a moratorium on mRNA vaccines until the safety and long-term effects are fully and transparently understood. Today marks a turning point, a moment for open dialogue, accountability, and global collaboration. Together, we stand for informed consent, medical integrity, and the protection of future generations. The risk warning for mRNA vaccines comprises 4 pages of conscious information, which can be downloaded in various languages at www.mwm-proof.com. Sign there if you believe it is better to stop before we cause the greatest catastrophe humanity has ever seen. Please join now the begin of this world journey of the truth, guided by courage and consciousness. Professor Paul Cullen will present the 14 theses of the moratorium before 33 speakers share in each 2-minute statements their experience in their countries. Please, Professor Dr. Paul Cullen.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Seeling, for the introduction. It's my great honor and privilege to present these questions, because these mRNA vaccines are essentially a new form of gene therapy that has not been completely tested, and there is no evidence of a positive risk-benefit relation for this new mRNA vaccination technology. We therefore demand a moratorium on all such modified RNA products until the risk-benefit ratio has been transparently proven and clarified. These products were developed much too quickly. They weren't tested adequately. We're now being faced with a lot of side effects. We see excess mortality, reduction in fertility, a lot of other problems. And I just go through the questions that we are now asking. The first question is, have these mRNA vaccines been independently and adequately tested, and are they safe for use? The second is the risk-benefit balance of these products clearly positive? The third question is the quantity, the location, and the duration of the product, the production of foreign proteins, particularly spike protein in the case of the COVID vaccine, has that been adequately controlled? Have there been adequate pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic investigations? How long, after what period of time does the production of spike protein end, or does it actually go on indefinitely? We don't know the answer to that question. Have the criticisms of vaccine safety been refuted by histopathological findings in tissue samples? The opposite would seem to be the case. Are the adverse effects associated with mRNA vaccines, are they rare or are they common? Do the mRNA vaccines actually protect against infection? Do they protect against transmission of the virus, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, to other people? Do they prevent? Because this was the basis for all of the mandates that we suffered under worldwide, was the claim that they prevented transmission of the virus. Do the mRNA vaccines, do they prevent severe disease in the event of infection? A very important question is multiple vaccination. In Germany, this was called boosting. Is this advisable? Then the 10th question is, so I'll start again. Is boosting multiple vaccination, repeat vaccination, is it advisable? Then the next question is, are these novel, are they better than conventional vaccines and other natural protective measures? Because as we all know, there are steps being considered at the moment to use this technology for producing most of the vaccines that are in use. Then are there few acute side effects associated with these vaccines? Are they almost always harmless, as has been claimed? Are medium-term side effects rare? Are they harmless in the medium term? And then are there any long-term effects associated with these products? And finally, can damage to fertility and to a reduction in live births, can that be excluded after use of these vaccines? Now, we know that these questions, we have a view that these questions are actually answered in the negative. And until these questions have been cleared up, we demand that there is a moratorium on production and use of these vaccines worldwide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Cullen, for this short overview about the moratorium. As we know, it's on mwm-proof.com. And there's to subscribe, and we can also see if there are physicians or scientists who are subscribing. So we come now to the countries. We start with New Zealand and then Australia. So please, Linda Wharton, I think.
Linda Wharton here from New Zealand. I'm the founder of the Health Forum NZ, a leading New Zealand voluntary organisation supporting New Zealanders harmed or bereaved by COVID injectables. Prior to my retirement, I enjoyed a 35-year career as a registered traditional Chinese acupuncturist and naturopath, with a parallel career as a freelance health journalist and writer. New Zealand, with a population of approximately 5.1 million, has almost exclusively used Pfizer-BioNTech mRNA COVID injectables. For the first almost 3 years of use, the product had only a provisional consent or provisional approval, with significant missing safety and efficacy data. The risk implications of this were not communicated to New Zealanders. This product has caused medical harm unprecedented in New Zealand history. Adverse event reporting is voluntary, and our drug regulator MedSafe acknowledges a likely 5% of actual adverse events are ever reported. Despite this, by November 2022, MedSafe had already received 65,000 adverse event reports, encompassing 249,903 individual medical events. 3,688 of these reports were marked as serious, with an additional 184 post-vaccination deaths reported. Death reports now stand at 196. By December 2023, over 20,500 individual serious adverse events had been reported to our drug regulator. Official government sources, politicians, and the media remain resolutely silent on such issues as systemic biodistribution, including traversing the blood-brain barrier, vaccinal spike production persisting for up to 700 days, as evidenced by a recent Yale study, plasmid DNA contamination, immune system alteration with a skew to tolerizing IgG4 antibodies, frame shifting, and the production of aberrant proteins, and much, much more. Pfizer-BioNTech mRNA has wrought unprecedented and population-wide harm on the New Zealand population. And in my opinion, and the opinion of many other scientists and doctors around the world, its use must be discontinued immediately. Thank you.
Okay, I think I'm next. My name is Gigi Foster. I'm a professor of economics and a dual American-Australian citizen. I represent Australians for Science and Freedom, a multidisciplinary organization aiming to restore freedom and the use of the scientific method as pillars in Australian society. It does not require specialist medical or health knowledge to be able to deduce that the mRNA COVID shots should be suspended because they are likely to be on net bad for human health. My statement is based on the observation that world deaths have significantly increased and world fertility has significantly decreased since the middle of 2021. While other reasons for these trends are possible, the COVID shots are an obvious candidate in light of the timing, the biological plausibility of harm, and the many documented actual harms reported in the medical literature and at the coalface. My economist co-authors and I analyzed these trends in a post for Brownstone Institute entitled Into the Abyss: How Bad Can the COVID Vaccine Story Get? We conclude that at their worst, the COVID shots may have produced an amount of damage to human life that is worse than any other man-made disaster in history, including the Great Leap Forward and all wars. In Australia, it is still not possible to speak in mainstream circles of the possibility that the COVID shots may be the culprit for vast quantities of damage. In fact, Australia is investing even more in mRNA products. Australians for Science and Freedom made a submission to the Australian Senate inquiry into excess deaths last year, in which we nominate 3 plausible causes for the tens of thousands of excess Australian deaths seen since mid-2021: delayed lockdown effects, death-producing hospital protocols, and the COVID shots. No Department of Health in Australia at any level of government is investigating this issue. The time-honored principle of do no harm should be applied. There is sufficient suggestive evidence for even a layperson to recognize that the mRNA products are probably damaging human life and health. We must ban these products until and unless it can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt that these products are not causing net damage to human health. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm next. My name is Professor Robin Cosford, also from Australia. So, dear distinguished audience, concerned people from all nations and all walks of life, I'm speaking as a mother of 5 and a grandmother of 5, as a clinician, medical clinician with a special interest in children and children's neurodevelopmental disorders, chronic fatigue syndrome, and now the post-acute vaccination syndrome, as a researcher into chronic fatigue syndrome, ASD, ADHD, and the gut microbiome, and as chair of the Children's Health Defence Australia chapter. Children's Health Defence is a USA-based non-profit organisation. Our mission is ending childhood health epidemics by eliminating toxic exposure. We will restore and protect the health of children by eliminating environmental exposures, holding responsible parties accountable, and establishing safeguards to prevent future harm of children's health, protecting children, exposing harms, and seeking justice. Against that framework, we place the mRNA vaccines. The effects of the mRNA vaccines go way beyond simply the question of protection against COVID, a disease which was never a threat to children or young adults, and only a real threat to those predominantly elderly people with underlying comorbidities such as obesity, diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, dementia, or cancer. The effects of the vaccines have shaken and are shaking our civilization to its core. Social cohesion is being affected by the fact that many families are experiencing the loss of the family breadwinner, either through sudden death, cancer, or prolonged vaccine-induced illness. The family units are destabilised and the children are thus affected. People are dying prematurely and often suddenly, unexpectedly, some, many the young, often in their sleep. When only one adult has been injected, often for the sake of maintaining income for the family, as is very much the case in Australia, the injection still affects other family members, as the affected person attempts to rid their body of the spike protein and the damaged DNA. Exosomes are excreted, which are lipid nanoparticles full of both DNA and the spike protein. These injections are effectively becoming airborne and sexually transmitted pathogens, extending far beyond simply that person injected. The current generation of children who have been injected themselves are suffering high rates of often subtle and missed myocardial damage, which will shorten their health span and their lifespan. As they mature, the effects on their mitochondrial function and hence physical and mental capacities will become more evident. Age-old infections like scarlet fever are making a comeback, and young people are increasingly suffering herpes zoster, previously a disease of the elderly. Later effects on fertility will become apparent as the injections concentrate in both the ovaries and the testes. As the components of the injections cross the blood-brain barrier and induce neuroinflammation, the rates of neurodevelopmental disorders and autism in particular are likely to rise yet further. The next generation of children are being affected by the fact that the mRNA injections given to mothers not only affect ovarian function with resultant altered menses, reduced fertility, reduced rates of conception, but also cross transplacentally with increased miscarriages and preterm deliveries, increased stillbirths, reduced live birth rates, and increased postnatal sudden infant death, as it were, deaths. Infants who are breastfed by injected mothers are experiencing high rates of side effects. However, the injections also alter DNA. This results not only in effects for those injected or the generation that was to be born to injected mothers, but likely transgenerational effects to many generations, the extent of which can only be guessed at. If we are to save our children and hence humanity, these mRNA injections must be halted immediately. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Jun Ueda, a molecular biologist from Japan. This August, we published a paper arguing on scientific and regulatory grounds that approval of mRNA vaccines should be revoked. Here I speak in a personal capacity and have no conflict of interest. In Japan, few scientists have spoken publicly because mRNA vaccination was promoted as a national policy with large funding streams that discouraged criticism. Despite many adverse event reports submitted to the Ministry of Health, officials still state there are no serious safety concerns. Vaccination continues as routine, and last October, a self-amplifying mRNA product entered the market. Japan is among the heaviest users of mRNA vaccines. Some individuals received 9 or 10 doses, yet transmission was not contained. The true extent of harm remains unknown because no comprehensive nationwide investigation has been conducted, and media coverage of injuries has been limited. Last month, at the annual meeting of the Japanese Society for Vaccinology, an institute under the Ministry of Health reported IgG4 class switching with repeated mRNA vaccination. The first time a government-associated body has acknowledged this effect. This week, a documentary film entitled The Blind Spot of Hippocrates will be released nationwide, highlighting the multiple issues related to mRNA vaccines. I hope these efforts help more people recognize the reality of the large-scale harm caused in our country. At present, many questions remain. The impact of frequent, repeated dosing in a short time frame on the human body must be examined with scientific rigor. While direct causal links have not yet been fully established, preliminary reports suggest a possible rise in cancer incidence among vaccinated individuals. This must be regarded as a serious warning signal. This is precisely why we must pause and confront reality. Today, colleagues in Germany and across Europe are calling for a moratorium on mRNA vaccines, citing the same safety concerns. This shows that our voice in Japan is not isolated, but part of a growing international movement for drug safety and ethical responsibility. As scientists and physicians, we must ensure that public health policies are grounded in truth. Thank you very much.
สวัสดีครับ This is Dr. อัตพล from Thailand. I represent the Thai Pitaxit, which is literally means protect right, because we want to choose what we want to put in our body. And we have the same problem that every country faced with the mRNA. First of all, I would like to say that as a psychiatrist and geneticist, I'm sure that COVID itself, it's a bioweapon. But the more, bad part is that the mRNA also the bioweapon. It's a modified RNA and it's a gene therapy and it's not a vaccine. Even though we are so lucky that we start with the real dead virus vaccine at the beginning, but eventually we got the mRNA also as other country. And in our country, they call it the vaccine tape, which literally means angel vaccine, but it's not, it's a devil. After we have that, the incidence of cancer in our country rests so high and still going on right now. The problem that I think that is very, very interesting and would like to focus though, it's COVID itself is not a very bad disease. It actually, the incidence of the death rate is very low and they are treatable disease. It's not easy it's very easy to treat. And also the other thing that I would like to mention is that the vaccine itself, the mRNA, cause a lot of harm and it's never fully tested for the safety. So whenever that someone use fear to try to sell drug, I think that's a big problem. And in this case, they definitely use that. And apart from that, we also face the same problem that other country face, the censorship. Whenever someone don't want you to know the fact, you don't want to know everything, try to hide everything, it's spelled bad. That's the bad side, that they try to do something bad to us. So that's why I really believe that mRNA is a bad thing. Still, I also have a good hope either to try to find a way to solve and treat the mRNA vaccine injury. I believe the first thing we have to accept that this is a big problem, because I understand that in order to solve any problems, you have to understand the problem first. You have to accept the problem first. And I fully believe that with that, we eventually will find a way to help people who affect from the vaccine injury. And I will hope that we will, go through this crisis together. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christoph Prete. I'm an osteopath and naturopath and part of the steering committee of the World Council for Health, which is a global coalition and is calling after its first call in 2021 again with the help of this event for an immediate moratorium of COVID mRNA vaccines. We were told they were safe and effective. The evidence reveals a different story. These were the fastest vaccines ever approved, bypassing standard 5 to 10 years safety studies. The initial trials were prematurely terminated, eliminating any chance to assess long-term risk, and a different product was used for the approval than the ones that were given to the public later on. They did not stop infection, they did not stop transmission. EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen personally and overtly negotiated a multi-million euro Pfizer vaccine contract via unofficial text messages, which were then deliberately hidden from the public, constituting a major transparency scandal. Meanwhile, the EMA approved the mRNA vaccines using accelerated emergency procedures, bypassing the standard, more rigorous and complete data review process required for approval and sacrificed procedural integrity, democratic oversight, and safety considerations. The result? We're now witnessing the consequences. The technology itself is a key concern. This is a gene therapy using synthetic mRNA. It hijacks our cells to produce the toxic spike protein with no off switch, provoking a sustained immune attack on our own bodies. Contrary to the stays in the arm claim, the lipid nanoparticles travel throughout the body, accumulating in vital organs.
This is linked to severe adverse events, notably myocarditis in the young. Independent scientists have found shocking contaminants in the vials, including DNA plasmids and an undeclared SV40 promoter in the Pfizer injections, a known cancer risk. So far, over 20 cancer-causing mechanisms of these injections have been identified. Recent evidence suggests this contamination can integrate in our human genome with unknown consequences for us and even worse for future generations. The data is alarming. Official databases like VG-Access of WHO and the European Ultravigilance hold millions of serious injuries reports with a known underreporting bias. Peer-reviewed studies show 1 in 500 severe injury rate, a 300% increase in cardiac death among the young, an alarming rise in turbocancers, and a steep decline on fertility since 2021. In conclusion, these injections were inadequately tested, built on a flawed and unpredictable technology, and have caused widespread harm. The call to action is clear. Reject further boosters, demand autopsies for sudden death, share these facts for true informed consent. We need a moratorium today. The World Council for Health stands for a better way. Thank you.
Hello, I think I'm next. My name is Andreas Sönnichsen. I'm a medical doctor with specialization in internal medicine and former professor of family medicine at the Medical University of Vienna. I represent Austria and the Austrian Scientific Initiative to Restore Science and Health in Austria, which is called Gesundheit für Österreich. Much has been said, so to keep it short, I only want to talk briefly about the current situation in Austria. Politicians, universities, and the media keep denying the negative effect of COVID measures, including mRNA vaccination. Media still keep on reporting the lie that millions of lives have been saved by the vaccine. Currently, the fall campaign for COVID and influenza vaccination has been started with the slogan, "Let's go get the booster," in Austrian dialect to touch people emotionally. Fortunately, the population is a lot smarter than their leaders. In winter 24-25, less than 5% of the population got a COVID vaccination, fortunately. We are hoping eagerly that these outrageously dangerous substances will be removed from the market as soon as possible. And that's why we are here. Thank you.
Hello and good afternoon, also from Austria. My name is Dr. Maria Hubmer-Mogg. I'm a physician and mental health coach, and I was organizing big public protests in Austria. Many of you maybe do not know that Austria was one of the very few and the only, to my knowledge, country where we had lockdowns only for the unvaccinated. This was ongoing for almost 3 months, and many probably have heard about Micronesia and the State of Vatican and Austria, where we even had mandatory vaccination in place for everybody 18 years old and older. That was a law that went through our government in January 2022. So today I speak on behalf of the newly formed nonprofit organization Make Europe Healthy Again, which will have its launch within the EU Parliament on October 15th. And I speak for our Chief Medical and Scientific Advisor, Dr. Asim Malhotra, a UK cardiologist that is well known around the world for speaking the truth, and also my great colleague, Dr. Andrea Lamont-Nazarenko. And we will and want to put the following statement out there. Until the most urgent questions are answered regarding true benefits and harms, nothing less than a global moratorium on COVID-19 mRNA vaccine is doable, coupled with formal, unequivocal apologies from governments and medical bodies for mandates and for silencing truth seekers. As evidence changes, so should policy. We did not see that happen. Again, we are calling for a formal apology and recognition of the impacts of poor policymaking on individuals and professionals who spoke out, and a change in policy to remove the mRNA platform from the market until more is known. It is time we listen to the science and engage in ethical policymaking in public health. Thank you so much from Austria.
We see now video recordings of 4 speakers who couldn't join today from Denmark, Estonia, Germany, and Sweden. Please.
My name is Janne Rumby. I'm an ear, nose, and throat doctor from Denmark. In 2021, I observed that my mostly young patients got all sorts of diseases in close temporal relation to the COVID-19 injections. When I heard about the impurities of artificial DNA, including the SV40 gene fragment in the vials, it all made sense. One would expect many more autoimmune diseases, allergic reactions, and cancers if this was true. It was also revealed that Pfizer shifted from a clean to a dirty manufacturing process after approval. Process 1, the clean process, refers to Pfizer's basic clinical trials in humans. Process 2, the dirty process, referred to the large-scale commercial product given to billions after approval. I wanted answers, so I sent questions to the Danish Minister of Health. Answers came from the Danish Medicines Agency. Citation: no placebo-controlled randomized clinical trials in humans have been conducted with material from process 2. This was their words, not mine. No clinical trials in humans for a product given to billions. And they continued, it is not unusual for a pharmaceutical company to make changes to its manufacturing process during the development of medicine or a vaccine. In other words, not only for vaccines, but for medicine in general, this practice of allowing changes to the manufacturing process after approval is business as usual. What other medicine and vaccines have been approved for this procedure and for how long? Given the history of SV40 virus in polio vaccines and the proven connection to cancer, why did they approve the presence of these fragments in the vials? They confirmed the presence of these very small fragments of SV40 in Pfizer's vaccines. Citation: it is unlikely that the SV40 fragment used in Pfizer's plasmid can behave in any way like the full virus, and therefore these fragments pose no risk of developing cancer, nor can they insert or alter the human genome. This is twisting the facts. This specific tiny SV40 fragment, not the whole virus, is normally used in gene therapy when genomic changes are wanted. Don't medicines authorities know this? Something is obviously wrong with the regulatory processes. They also admitted that, citation, it is correct that it was not specified in the application from Pfizer that the DNA plasmid contains small pieces of SV40 sequences. My following question: should this omission in the application not have consequences for Pfizer? I got no answer. In my view, this has gone too far. Manufacturers, as well as regulators and health authorities, must have responsibility. These products are too dangerous and must be halted and recalled. Thank you.
Good day. My name is Dr. Jonathan Gilthorpe. I am a research scientist from the United Kingdom, and since 2008, I have led my own research group in Sweden. My career, spanning almost 30 years, has given me direct expertise in areas central to the mRNA vaccine platform, including the techniques used to engineer RNA to express proteins in human cells. I am intimately familiar with both the potential and the significant pitfalls of such a strategy. This is why I began raising the alarm in late 2020, before these vaccines were released. It was clear to me that fundamental safety concerns, particularly regarding the uncontrolled production of the toxic spike protein and its effects, could not have been adequately addressed in such a short developmental timeframe. When enormous numbers of adverse vaccine events were being reported in early 2021, and evidence of inconsistent side effects between vaccine batches emerged, I again raised concerns. Yet regulators and institutions were unwilling to investigate in a scientifically credible and transparent manner. This failure led me in autumn of 2024 to co-found the North Group, together with Dr. Janne Rumby and other colleagues. We are supported by approximately 1,000 professionals across 27 countries worldwide, and we have called on world leaders and their public health organizations for three things. Firstly, an immediate halt and recall of modified mRNA vaccines. Secondly, an independent and transparent investigation into their approval. And third, and crucially, a scientific proof that there is no risk of damage to human DNA for this generation or future generations. We stand resolutely behind this initiative for a global moratorium. It is our firm belief that these products are harmful, and the hope placed in them is not based on rigorous scientific data. A cover-up is underway, and the only way to uncover the truth and to help those afflicted is through coordinated mass action like this. Thank you.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, as a lawyer, I would like to point out the legal shortcomings in the approval process for so-called mRNA vaccines in the European Union. First of all, it should be noted that the approved substances are not vaccines in the conventional sense, as they do not contain antigens, but rather the blueprints for parts of the virus, foreign substances that the vaccinated person's body is supposed to produce itself. This is actually gene therapy, which, compared to a conventional drug, would normally be subject to a more complex approval process and stricter approval requirements. However, due to a European directive from 2009, vaccines in the European Union are not approved under the complex procedure for gene therapies, but under the simpler normal procedure. Paradoxically, this means that substances that act like vaccines and are used on a vast number of healthy people are tested much less carefully in advance than curative drugs that are designed to reach sick and often desperate people specifically. In the case of the mRNA substances, this meant that, for example, the distribution of the so-called vaccines in the body, such as possible gene transfer to the germline, possible changes in the genetic material of cells and cancer risks, and the influence of the substances on important parameters for basic functions of the human body were not thoroughly tested. In the fast-track approval process for mRNA vaccines, it was originally stipulated that multi-year placebo-controlled studies would have to be conducted. Such studies are the gold standard for regulatory authorities worldwide when it comes to proving the efficiency and long-term safety of drugs. Without valid studies of this kind, regular drug approval must be rejected under European Union law. In 2021, however, it became known that Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna had dissolved control groups of their studies despite this requirement. The reason given was that it was ethically problematic to withhold the vaccine from unvaccinated study participants. But isn't it even more unethical to approve a drug for mass use that has not been systematically tested against the control group for long-term efficiency and, above all, for safety factors? As a result, the approval of the so-called mRNA vaccines constituted a massive violation of mandatory principles of health law. From a legal perspective, it must therefore be emphatically demanded that mRNA substances be subjected to a rigorous approval process that meets proven standards before they are used further. Thank you very much.
My name is Helen Lasna. I'm a medical doctor, family doctor in Estonia. I have PhD in neuroscience from Karolinska Institute, Sweden, and I'm a board member of World Council for Health Estonia. I've been working with patients last 25 years, and I've never seen this kind of side effects what have been occurring after the COVID jabs were brought to the market. It's very concerning because already in the beginning I noticed and I understood that the clinical studies were not properly conducted. And the side effects, what were obvious already in very early in that time, they were ignored. And I've been speaking out about that and about the situation. And I really ask here that we, together with all other experts, that these jabs will be removed from the market and they are not appropriate for the human use as we have done it and we still do. And taking into consideration all the pathological effects on cellular level and all additional compounds what are found in the jabs, such as nanoparticles, SV40, and DNA plasmids, and so on. What we are aware about now that these jabs are not appropriate for clinical use. So, and also, as we know nowadays, that uridine was replaced by the pseudouridine, which makes the jabs to replicate and produce the spike protein for much longer time than it was said in the beginning. Instead of 2 weeks, it's now, we know that it's in some cases it's even for 3 years, and this is very toxic to the body and it produces a lot of side effects, which we see today still. There are a lot of cardiovascular, central nervous system, gastrointestinal, cancerogenic and allergic and many autoimmune diseases, and I have seen the increase of these diseases several folds, which is not acceptable. And all this, putting all this knowledge and data together, what we have today, there's tons of studies which are proving that these jabs are not clinically appropriate for human use, and especially for the babies. So I really ask you that together with all these experts we have around the world, that these jabs should be stopped and removed from the market. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Gerald Düker. Within a team of 5 chemistry professors, we have since early 2022 been sending critical questions through public letters to BioNTech and to the Paul-Ehrlich Institute. The latter is the very authority in Germany responsible for vaccine approval and safety. We mostly receive no response at all, but the questions they choose not to answer already provide important information. And now to today's question. Why is it so important to re-evaluate mRNA technology right now? mRNA technology is currently introduced in more and more areas of life, and it's done without the necessary care. mRNA vaccines are already being developed for pets, for livestock, even for farmed salmon and in crop protection. And most importantly, also the standard childhood vaccinations might be switched to mRNA technology. That would mean around 10 genetic injections in the first 2 years of life. We really have to ask ourselves, are we confident enough in the safety of mRNA vaccines to take that risk with our children and grandchildren? Of course, the answer should be clearly no. And there's more. We already know from the very first approval of COVID mRNA vaccines that the process was anything but careful. A recent example is particularly alarming to me as a chemist. In early August, a paper appeared in a leading scientific journal based on a joint project of German and Japanese researchers from top research groups, including a Nobel Prize winner. It focused on the artificial lipid ALC-315, the main component of the nanoparticles that deliver the mRNA. And here's the problem. ALC-315 does not exist in a single clean form, but in 3 different spatial variants in a ratio of 1 to 2 to 1. 2 of them are clearly toxic to cells, and only 1 is less harmful. In other words, 3/4 of this substance being applied for the mRNA vaccines is cell toxic. This is a chilling reminder of the Contagan thalidomide tragedy. Back then, the different stereoisomers of a drug were overlooked, and the consequences were devastating. That is exactly why every single isomer of ALC 315 should have been thoroughly tested. Yet Germany's Paul-Ehrlich Institute seems to have ignored it. And this is not an isolated case. It is one more example that even today we still lack a solid evidence-based risk-benefit assessment of this technology. Before mRNA vaccines are further rolled out on an even broader scale, we urgently need an honest, independent re-evaluation. Thanks for listening.
I am Helmut Sterz. I'm a veterinarian. I've been working for 35 years as a toxicologist in the pharmaceutical industry. I will briefly refer to the myth that the mRNA vaccines against COVID-19 have gone through the most thorough preclinical safety testing, and I will refer to the preclinical safety strategy of the Pfizer and BioNTech vaccines. The two companies have executed 2 toxicity studies in rats. One was a 2-week general toxicity study, the other a study on reproductive toxicity. None of these studies was designed to allow the statement that the vaccine was without risk for the use in man. Apart from these 2 irrelevant studies, Pfizer and BioNTech have not provided studies on general toxicity in a non-rodent species, nor any study of longer duration than 2 weeks. In the dossier provided to the health authorities for approval, there were no studies on pharmacokinetics, safety pharmacology, immunotoxicity, mutagenicity, carcinogenicity, on male fertility, or in juvenile animals, and no studies on reproductive toxicity in a non-rodent. In summary, the safety strategy of Pfizer and BioNTech might have been acceptable for an orphan drug, but not for the treatment of billions of healthy human beings, the majority of whom had no increased risk due to SARS-CoV-2. In case of the development of a new vaccine in the future based on innovative technologies, it will be of utmost importance to perform preclinical safety studies that take into account the catastrophic experience with the COVID-19 vaccines. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Klaus Steger, molecular biologist with 30 years of experience in RNA technology and board member of MWGFD, the German Association of Medical Doctors and Scientists for Health, Freedom and Democracy. We established a laboratory where we can prove for the presence of vaccine-specific spike protein, RNA and plasmid DNA in blood and tissue samples. Each shot of RNA-based genetic vaccines contains billions of Trojan horses consisting of RNA packaged in lipid nanoparticles which smuggle RNA into every single cell of your body. Then RNA hijacks your cells and forces them to produce as much of a foreign protein as possible for as long as possible. Of note, all hijacked formerly healthy cells will ultimately be attacked and destroyed by your immune system. Major risks for your health were known from the outset, but none of which you were told about. 2 examples. First, you have been told that mRNA has a short half-life. However, injectables didn't contain natural mRNA, but synthetically modified mRNA, known as mRNA. This information can be in fact found on the manufacturer's websites. Published in 2005, the 2023 Nobel Prize recipients replaced uridine with methylpseudouridine, converting mRNA into mRNA, which is more stable, has a longer half-life, and suppresses recognition of exogenous RNA by toll-like receptors. In the light of these facts, I would very much like to encourage you to finally call the injected RNA by its real name. mRNA, as continuously calling it mRNA, plays into the hands of the political agenda. Second, you have been told that the injected RNA will stay in the cell's cytoplasm. However, Independent researchers worldwide, including our own lab, detected large amounts of DNA residues from the manufacturing process. It's a significant part of the Trojan horse and will be present in all future RNA-based injectables. DNA will enter the nuclei of your cells and will increase the likelihood of being incorporated in your genome. Despite better knowledge, booster injections known to disrupt the regulation of your immune system continue to be administered, and the next generation of self-amplifying RNA has already been approved. Therefore, it's high time to take action and to clearly say no. Thank you for your attention.
Then we come to Walter Weber from Ärzte für Aufklärung.
Yes, my name is Walter Weber. I'm a doctor of internal medicine of Hamburg. I'm the co-founder of the so-called Doctors for Enlightenment. And we soon found out that this pandemic was not true, but a fake. And we saw that in March of 2020 that mRNA didn't work in animal. They most of them died in that trial. So I thought that they would not try it on human beings, but they did. We told the truth as medical doctors on many demonstrations before, I think, nearly 1 million of people, and we did 4 million flyers against that vaccination. You know the result, and I myself gave a lot of attests for mask exemptions, and the state didn't like it very much. So I got 2 house searches, and I was before court of justice nearly 50 times, and I was judged to 1 year and 10 months of Gefängnis with probation, jail, 1 month and 10 months of jail with probation, and my case now is pending before the highest court of Germany, the so-called BGH. I'm treating a lot of patients with damage after vaccination of COVID vaccine, including tumor cancer, and this, is not very, very good. The duty of mask wearing in 2020 was not necessary at all, but it was an exercise of obedience to send the people to the vaccinations, and it worked a lot. So we have to do a lot of things, and I think this conference will help to stop this damage at all. Thank you.
My name is Engelbert Paschek. I'm a mathematician and researcher and have worked as a consultant in the pharmaceutical industry for more than 15 years. I speak for the Expert Council. This is an international network of active and renowned scientists, experts, and journalists from the fields of medicine, natural and human sciences, and law. Most of its activities take place in German-speaking countries. The network is working together on solutions and therapies for the numerous consequences that have arisen as a result of the pandemic measures. Live training courses for doctors and therapists are also offered on long COVID and post-vac. There are a number of unresolved problems with the modified mRNA, also called modRNA, injectables, largely due to the shortened development and approval phase of already marketed products. Among other things, the inflammatory lipid nanoparticles used and the plasmid DNA contamination, already detected by several labs, pose a major problem and lead to unexpected and serious side effects. Furthermore, quantity, location, and duration of endogenous production of foreign proteins, like the toxic spike protein, is not under control due to a lack of pharmacokinetic and biodistribution studies. A long-known problem, which is also mentioned in the package inserts of approved modified mRNA injectables, is myocarditis, especially in male adolescents and young men. It leads to permanent damage in many cases and significantly increases the risk of heart failure. At the same time, there is an increase in autoimmune diseases and a significant decline in the birth rate in many countries that could have far-reaching social consequences. Package inserts state that impairment of male fertility after modified mRNA injections has not been investigated. According to package inserts, neither genotoxicity nor carcinogenicity studies were performed before approval, which leaves many unanswered questions. There's alarming evidence of an increased cancer risk for which there appear to be several causes, including the already mentioned plasmid DNA impurities and an impaired immune system. Pharmacoeconomic analyses were omitted by the authorities, and as a consequence, the risk-benefit ratio of modified mRNA injectables has not been sufficiently clarified in any way. Especially the long-term risk is still completely unclear due to the lack of long-term safety studies. In view of these serious and other manifold risks, we recommend an immediate halt to mRNA vaccinations. Thank you for your attention.
My name is Eva Pop. I'm a dual citizen, Australian and Hungarian, and a retired scientist. I'm speaking I'm speaking as myself, not in the name of any group or university. To understand the dangers that mRNA vaccines pose in Hungary, first we need to understand what we have. One of the strictest compulsory childhood vaccination regimes in Hungary. Parents have no discretion over the administration of compulsory childhood vaccines. Under Hungarian law, any child residing in Hungary for longer than 3 months must meet the immunization requirements, even if they are not Hungarian citizens. Antigens against 40 pathogens, many combined and repeated in 17 shots, are given to babies from birth to children up to age 13, almost without exception. Antibody tests are not acceptable as proof of immunity. Even already vaccine-injured children practically cannot get an exemption because doctors are afraid to give one. If they do, supporting the recommendation, sometimes with hundreds of pages of medical records and years of knowing and treating the child, a special agency of the government will in many cases nullify that exemption and declares the child ready to be vaccinated. Children who are known to be in danger of anaphylactic shock from the vaccine or even death are given the shot in an emergency ward of a hospital so they can be resuscitated. The public health authority can impose a fine up to 500,000 Hungarian forint per vaccination. This fine can be imposed repeatedly until the vaccination is administered. In parallel with the fines, failure to vaccinate often triggers the Child Protection Alert System. Initially, the public health nurse reports the absence of vaccination to the Child Welfare and Family Support Services and the Guardianship Authority. This is generally classified by the authorities as endangering the child and initiates a child protection procedure. If the authorities order protection, then the parents must cooperate with the appointed family support worker. The family support worker may decide that the parents are not cooperating, which can be considered severe endangerment, and thus the child may be placed in foster care, meaning they could be removed from the family, even with brutal force involving police. If this happens, the parent can no longer prevent the vaccination from being administered. Many young families move abroad because of this reason. Some families stay and choose to take on the government in a legal battle with the help of a team of lawyers led by Angelika, who is speaking after me. So imagine if and when all or even some of the childhood vaccines will be mRNA-based and given to all children according to this system, what will be the result? Thank you.
Okay, my name is Angelika, and I'm a lawyer, and we represent about 600 children. They are all of them vaccine injured, except 17 who are unvaccinated. And we have two mRNA vaccine injured adult clients. And the situation regarding the mRNA vaccines is the same as another countries. The mainstream media and politicians support the mRNA technology, and they deny any harm caused by this technology and these vaccines. Hungary is very interesting because the excess mortality and the statistics are not the same as another country which countries are highly vaccinated, because we in Hungary saw a sharp spike in 2021, and after this followed stabilization regarding the death of the people. And but in this year, in 2021, there was 20% over increase, and let me see, the deaths between 45 and 64 years, it was 40% increase. So actually, the procedure which is slower in another country, in Hungary it happened in 1 year, in 2021. So this is the main reason why we don't have excess mortality rates, because everybody died in 2021, or many people, and which is very interesting. And the another interesting thing is regarding the infant death numbers, because in Hungary, as Eva told, the mandatory vaccine system is very strong and very strict. And we have BCG when the baby is born, BCG vaccine, and the next vaccine comes at 2 months old, when the baby is 2 months old. And we have all of our 600 clients' medical records from the birth. And as Eva told, some of them more than 100 pages. And we can compare the side effects of the vaccines. And from 2024, the infants develop vaccine side effects 2 months. So earlier we could see the side effects regarding autism, neurodevelopment symptoms, stomach symptoms, and different kind of autoimmune symptoms and everything. We could see 20 months or 18 months, but everything happens in 2 months since 2024. And which is very concerning, many new symptoms appeared, hemangiomas. Many baby has hemangiomas. And earlier it was very, very rare. And we have, as I told you, 600 medical records. And the age is from all around from Hungary. And the youngest from infants to 12 years old, or the oldest one is 16 years old. So we can make a comparison, and we see, and this is very concerning. The another very interesting thing, in the medical record, the BCG, we don't have the brand name of the vaccine, and only a number, a lot number. So we cannot check what kind of vaccine the children get. Even the brand name, we don't know. And which is very concerning regarding every country and everything. I cannot say any other thing, but this is very concerning. And these hemangiomas, these are very, very concerning. And it's very rapid development, the vaccine side effects. So we could try to get vial, because it's given only in hospitals, this BCG. So even the pediatricians, they don't have. And only in hospitals, and we try to get one and to check what is inside, because we don't know. So I think what's happening in Hungary should be very concerning in every country, because it's something very strange thing happening here. We can see, and I think everybody should. So we need help, actually, because Eva said every detail, so I don't want to get your time. And please, not only the mRNA vaccines, but other vaccines are a problem as well, and they can switch into a moment, every vaccine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, your time.
Thank you very much, Angelika. It's really, it's not told somewhere else what you have given to us now. So thank you very much, and for this impact and perspective. And we have to make studies about that. What is behind these vaccines if they don't even tell the brand or the company? So that is sounds really strange.
Oh, and sorry, I have forgotten to say the infant deaths, the mortality in 2024. There is a spike, 22% rise compared to 2023. 22% rising from to
children.
Yeah, it's infants.
Yes.
Not infants.
Yes. So
infants.
Okay.
That's
Thank
it.
you very much.
Thank you.
Then we hand over to France. Bonjour.
Yes. Good afternoon. Bonjour. I'm Francois-Marie Perier, recently elected president of European Forum for Vaccine Vigilance, founded 25 years ago, and the successor of Dr. Jean-Pierre Audier. I'm a writer and a teacher, and I've been the coordinator of national and international public rallies to expose the adverse events of COVID vaccines with the victims. Their speech has always been decisive in all kinds of scandals around the world. Let's never forget Me Too. So I will speak as a historian of myth and civilization. What has been imposed to humanity since 2020 is a total war against free life, based on the control and censorship of information, from schools to mass medias, laboratories and armies. An innovative, artificial, 100% politically oriented information, disruptive on genes, brains, minds, cells, cell phones, and the younger, the best. It's a storytelling, a cancel, and a cancer culture for our planet, our intelligence, peace, freedom, the heritage of our fathers, the future of our children. From the Garden of Eden of Genesis to the farmers of DNA or mRNA of genetics, from Asclepius and the Book of Revelation to Freud and the World Health Organization, man has faced the symbol of a serpent of knowledge and health, but also pulsion and hypnosis, a serpent that bites, poisons, suffocates, opposed to a higher god or angelos, messenger of light and truth, archetypes. In Hindu myths, our dark ages of carbon and oil, Kali Yuga. Our dark ages are represented by Kali. Kali is a chaotic musician, a poison that will grow and possess the earth. And here we are, our souls, cells and souls poisoned anywhere by the most condemned corporations, mafias and official powers. Our journey of truth betrayed a humanism, the ancient Greek, the Renaissance and the lights, extending globally. We chose the hubris, chaos, genetic scissors and atomic fission to become death, the destroyer of the worlds, as Oppenheimer said in front of the atomic bomb, quoting the Bhagavad Gita. Now it's time to stop and choose an intelligent and connected science, a common earth, and humanity as messengers of a true, free and living information. Satyagraha, the power of truth, as Gandhi said. Thank you.
Yes, now we can hear you. Okay.
Fantastic. All right. Okay, back in March 2020, I warned people as to the madness to use those mRNA products in people, because in 20 years of development, no product ever had reached beyond phase 2, none. How did I know? Because I've been a geneticist for over 30 years, specialized on RNA for over 15 years. I'm a retired director of research of the French NIH. I'm a head of research institute called Simplicima in Mauritius. I'm the proud member of the North Group, as well as the EU Board of Children's Health Defense, which website has strangely disappeared. My name is Alexandra, Henrion-Caude. The best preferred image that I have about this technology is this filthy toy you could not get rid of, which was called slime, the green slime. The slime being those toxic lipid nanoparticles fusing with your cells, as if when touching slime, it would patch your own skin and deliver an artificial genetic product which hijacks the program of your cells in your precious organs. The preferred name now that I have for those products comes from French. In France, instead of messenger, we call it mensonger, meaning lie. Lie on the number of doses, on the efficiency, on the safety, the danger, on where it goes, even in breast milk. Never ever before have we seen so many unexpected deaths at unexpected age, even neonatally, from unexpected and rapid diseases. Last but not least, I also speak as a mother of 5 children and a grandmother of a grandchild. In 2021, I had coined the word spikopathy to describe the symptoms coming from the fact those mRNA had altered people into toxic spike-producing machines. Today, we need to arrest this technology coming in syringes, as well as in your food through vaccinated ducks in France, intranasal or inhalable sprays, self-amplifying mRNA in Japan or any other administrations, because whatever the administration is, they all concur to what I propose to coin and best describe as an ongoing, deep, transgenerational genetic alteration, DTGA. Together, for our humanity, we have to stop this ongoing, deep, transgenerational genetic alteration, DTGA, due to those messenger RNA slime products. I thank you for your attention. Let's arrest this technology.
Yeah, Christina?
Okay. Hello, my name is Christina del Prete. I'm a pharmacist and part of Aletheia, Switzerland. It's a network of doctors and scientists, and we are also in contact with other groups like, for example, Info-Santé. And here in Switzerland, we are also very concerned about the mRNA technology. Medicines must be safe and effective when they come onto the market. And when it comes to vaccines, which are be used preventively in healthy people, the issue of safety is even more important. Many of the pharmaceutical industry safety standards have been neglected in the name of emergency. Early on, there were reports of problems with the quality of the raw material and errors in the conduct of clinical trials. It became apparent that the different batches varied greatly from one another, which is a no-go in the pharmaceutical industry. In order to produce more quickly and cheaply, the manufacturing process was changed, resulting in products contaminated with DNA and possibly oncogenic SV40. Nevertheless, they're still recommended for pregnant women in Switzerland. I find this shocking. Companies must produce reproducible quality, and regulatory authorities are there to monitor them and remove the products from the market if there is reasonable suspicion of safety issues. In Switzerland, criminal charges have been filed against the regulatory authority Swissmedic because there's reasonable suspicion that the approval and the monitoring of these products was not carried out correctly. The adapted variants are now being sold as platform approvals, similar to the annual flu. If you look at data in the product information, you will find a note that the safety data refers to data on previous variants, which means we have virtually no safety data because the trials were terminated prematurely and the general population was injected with a different product than the ones tested in the clinical trials. We urgently need a moratorium on this technology before it is used in childhood vaccinations. Thank you.
My device is because the PC didn't work anymore. I don't know why, so sorry. Okay, I'm Laura Teodori. My name is Laura Teodori.
Can you please change it? Now you are, yeah, okay. That looks better.
This way, okay. I'm a biologist. My expertise is on cell signaling and microRNA. So I would like to make three statements, three considerations. One about mRNA-based products, one on Italian situation, and one on our actions. So based on the first consideration, the first statement is that the mRNA products should be suspended and clinics for adverse events prevention and treatment should be opened because patients are, at least in Italy, are completely abandoned and it's very costly for them to get through. Beside the problem that our colleague have nicely explained before about toxic spike, uncontrolled production, nanoparticles shuttles with lipid nanoparticle shuttles. I would like to add a consideration on cell signaling disturbance introduced by exogenous mRNA. I think that anyone, even with even a basic understanding of the cellular and molecular machinery involved in protein synthesis and maturation, must be concerned about the widespread use in healthy population of mRNA products. I make just a few examples to make myself clear. So, for example, the post-translational modification during protein biosynthesis. So, signaling pathways can be activated by external stimuli like RNA. It can dynamically modify the mRNA's translation and stability, influencing which protein are produced. This can trigger cellular surveillance mechanism or silencing them, leading to mRNA decay and the production of abnormal proteins, abnormal polypeptides. So this silencing of mechanism, surveillance mechanism can induce also, can be responsible of these turbo cancers. So another thing is the quality control. Some colleagues have already spoken about, but I would like to speak about the mRNA integrity. I remember that this has been asked by Peter Doshi at the very early beginning, but the companies never responded. mRNA integrity is crucial for proper cell signaling, gene expression. We don't know how much is the percentage of mRNA purity in these products. So the last thing I would like to speak about is, for example, the similarity of spike protein with other human proteins. For example, proteomic analysis revealed a striking similarity between the SARS-CoV-2 spike and the titin, the protein titin, which plays a pivotal role in regulating cardiac function and explaining, for example, for myocarditis admitted even from the agency themselves and the company. And then there is the problem of cell mimicry and so on. We denounced all these things in the very early beginning. In 2021, we produced a huge document with more than 400 citations that was given to politician, constitutional court, and etc. So this is my consideration of on the hazard of using mRNA. The Italian situation, very, very shortly, the Italian situation, we had some of the strictest management of pandemic concerning compulsory vaccination, lockdown, etc. But there was no scientific debate involving experts with different views. But very recently, during this summer, draft law was presented to introduce compulsory vaccination for adult and frail people, and between frail people, among frail people, of course, children's are the most important platform for them. So the last thing is consideration on our initiative. I'm here representing l'Albero della Vita, le verità nascoste, especially Albero della Vita, and we did some actions, some initiatives that included more than 150 associations, and also some hundreds of individuals, professionals. And I think this is very important what you are doing, because it's important this time to do networking between association, individuals, and yet is very challenging. And this needs really competence, study, passion, but also generosity. So, okay, that's it. So many of this initiative you can find in our websites. Thank you.
Thank you. So we come to Ireland. Paul Cullen, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dirk. I'm a specialist, an internist and a specialist in laboratory medicine. I trained in medicine in Dublin, and I've worked in Dublin and England, in London, and also here for many years in Germany. And in my statement, I want to address not the medical and scientific problems that the other speakers have mentioned, but to draw attention to problems with novel therapies such as mRNA vaccines, as these apply to small countries like Ireland. As an Irish physician working in Germany, I've been able to compare the response to the mRNA vaccines in both countries. About 85% of the Irish population received a COVID vaccine, most of whom received an mRNA vaccine. And even though the same adverse effects were seen in Ireland as were seen in other countries, as have been mentioned here, the response in Ireland has been very muted. Although there's been almost no response from the authorities in Ireland to these problems, much less than even in Germany. And it has been very difficult to gain access to data, for example, on adverse effects on mortality, on fertility, from official sources. Small countries like Ireland are often used as laboratories for testing novel therapies. This is of particular relevance in Ireland because Ireland is the site of manufacturing for many large pharmaceutical companies, which have a great deal of influence on the Irish government. The mRNA vaccine problem is international in scope and needs to be addressed internationally, as small countries like Ireland don't have the resources financially, politically, scientifically to deal with this. So this is a most important initiative because the fruits of this can also be applied to countries like Ireland that are not able to face a problem like this on their own. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ros Jones. I'm a retired paediatrician and from the UK and a member of the Heart Group. In Britain, we've had no tradition of compulsory childhood vaccines, unlike Hungary. And I think that put our citizens in a stronger position than in many countries to push back on general mandates. But having said that, combination of the fear propaganda, the psychological pressure to get vaccinated to protect the vulnerable, and tied into travel bans for most countries in Europe for the unvaccinated, meant that in practice, most adults in the UK did take these. Censorship was widespread, and I think even today, many people, including many doctors and politicians, seem unaware that these mRNA-based, gene-based vaccines are a totally new technology, the risks of which we're hearing about and are becoming more and more apparent. As a paediatrician, I was particularly concerned when I saw healthy children being recruited into the trials right back in autumn 2020, when there was no medium-term, let alone long-term safety data for adults. And it was obvious that for children, the risk of death from COVID was effectively zero. We wrote to UK regulators to try and dissuade them from authorising these products for children, but to no avail. Interestingly, when the vaccines were rolled out, for example, to primary school kids in the UK, the NHS adverts confirmed that they didn't need them. They showed a picture of a little girl sitting on the lap of a white-haired lady, and the parents were being exhorted to get their children vaccinated to protect the grandparents. This is not only unethical, but it's actually against international law, which makes very clear that for children, they can only be treated for their own personal health benefit. Parents, luckily, ignored the government advice very wisely, and less than 10% of primary school kids in the UK actually have any of these. But what about now? Well, adults, the boosters are being reduced steadily, and I think most adults just want to forget the whole thing. But meanwhile, companies like Moderna, for example, are getting huge government grants, both in the UK, Australia, certainly, and I think Canada. We've got a big facility set up near Oxford now, which is aiming to produce mRNA vaccines, all new vaccines, and as others have mentioned, probably replacing the traditional vaccines that are currently in the children's schedule, most of which are now long since off patent. So this is not about just COVID vaccines. The mRNA platform itself is inherently unsafe. Whatever protein the mRNA codes for, there is no off switch. So in effect, that protein will go on being produced for we don't know how long, in what parts of the body, and in what quantity. So a complete moratorium for this technology, I think, is the only answer. It's urgently needed, and a full and transparent investigation into how on earth it was ever recommended for this new technology to be spread to the entire population of the world. So thank you for supporting our endeavour.
Yeah, thank you to Great Britain and also your Quick Health in supporting our movement. And I think from Spain we have a problem that he was not available. Then we hear from Spain by video.
Hello, I am José Muñoz, a biologist and activist from Spain. The latest official data in Spain on the evaluation of the efficacy of mRNA products is from March 2024, with data from June 2023. This report combines all deaths prior to the introduction of RNA technology with cases reported after vaccination in an attempt to prove an unproven efficacy. The latest pharmacovigilance report is from 2023 and mentions 500 deaths related to this product, always trying to avoid establishing causality. Since then, neither the authorities nor the press have been willing to report anything related to possible problems with this technology, despite the multitude of studies highlighting its effect on cardiovascular, immune, neurological, fertility, and cancer disease. The European Parliament stated that the damage caused by mRNA vaccination is indistinguishable from long COVID, but in the practice, it is not admitted that there are people affected by the vaccination and is only promoting actions to study long COVID. Data from doctors in contact with patients show a weakened general state of health after vaccination and conditions that are more difficult to treat. The amount of reliable information available on the problems associated with this technology is overwhelming, but at the same time the attempt to hide them and discredit anyone who tries to talk about them is insulting. If we live in a democracy, every life, every voice is important, especially from those who are suffering the consequences of this experiment. The science that must be followed and trusted is speaking with data. Now all that remains is for both administration and the media to allow the debate without it being sponsored or torpedoed by industrial interest. It is time to halt the mass inoculation of these mRNA products until it is clear that they are beneficial to the recipients. Thank you very much.
Good day, my name is Dr. Rapiti. I'm a family physician from Cape Town with over 4 decades of experience working on the front line. Today, I wish to support my colleagues from all over the world to impose a moratorium on the toxic and ineffective mRNA vaccines and technology with immediate effect. I've treated over 4,000 severely ill COVID patients using repurposed drugs and oxygen with a 99.97% success rate without relying on the COVID vaccines for protection or prevention. From the very inception, I was vehemently opposed to the use of the COVID vaccines because they were rushed, untested, and dangerous. According to some reports, there were almost 17 million deaths associated with this vaccine. Today, I'm sadly treating several patients with severe toxic side effects and injuries of these vaccines. These include heart attacks, myocarditis, neurological damage like Guillain-Barré syndrome, and a number of turbo cancers, because these patients are being thrown under the bus like useless pariahs. Africa, with less than 10% vaccine uptake, recorded the lowest COVID death rates globally. This is resounding proof and evidence that these jabs were unnecessary, toxic, and a catastrophic waste of public funds. We were silenced and vilified, but we will not back down. I stand firmly with the ethical doctors from around the world to demand a global moratorium on all mRNA technology. Enough lives have been destroyed. We are determined to ensure that all those responsible for this atrocity on the entire human race are held fully accountable, no matter how powerful they are. Never again must we ever allow innocent human beings to be subjected to such outrageous torture and suffering. I, with the rest of my colleagues around the world, will not be silenced till justice is done. Thank you, Dr. Rapiti, Cape Town.
So we are happy to have Dr. Peter McCullough in our group. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thanks to each and every one of you for joining. I've listened to all the comments, and they were expertly presented. I have a few additional points. From an infectious disease epidemiology perspective, it's always a mistake to vaccinate into a widely prevalent pandemic, because that vaccination will just cause mutations in the virus and cause the pandemic to be prolonged, which is exactly what happened. So the idea of vaccination with any vaccine was a giant mistake, and all countries should recognize that. And their public health officials, we should never vaccinate again into a widely prevalent pandemic. As you've heard today, the vaccine was worse than the infection itself. And best estimates are more people have died from the vaccine than they have from the infection itself. Vaccination was never needed because young people, the syndrome was very mild. And for older, more frail patients, we had early, effective multi-drug treatment protocols. In the United States, they were widely supported by the Association of American Physician and Surgeons. Now, here we are, more than 5 years into this disaster, and in a paper published by Holscher and colleagues in the journal Science, Public Health Policy and the Law, there is a broad call to remove all COVID-19 vaccines from the market, and we cite all of the international groups who are making that call, including lawmakers, and we've summarized all the other manuscripts in the scientific peer-reviewed literature that have concluded that the risks far outweigh the benefits. Now, in the last few weeks, we've seen the US CDC drop its universal recommendation for COVID-19 vaccination across all groups. So the public health agencies are quietly backing away from COVID-19 vaccination, and this group is unified in making the call that all of the vaccines should be removed off the market, particularly the messenger RNA vaccines. The entire platform should have a moratorium, and that would include the Pfizer Moderna vaccines, but also the Moderna respiratory syncytial virus vaccine. The messenger RNA vaccines have no ability to shut off production of the antibody. In my practice in Dallas, my office is filled every day with those who are injured and disabled, damaged from the vaccine. And in a research case, we now have circulating Pfizer messenger RNA and its spike protein circulating in blood and found in tissues 3.2 years after the last administration. I've testified the US Senate and the US House of Representatives, and I've told them I think we have 5 to 15 years of clinical concern over every person in the world who's taken a COVID-19 vaccine, particularly a messenger RNA vaccine. So there should be a moratorium on any further injection of the messenger RNA COVID-19 vaccines. I think broadly all messenger RNA vaccines and broadly all COVID-19 vaccines. And secondly, there should be a dramatic turn towards research into methods by which we can screen and detect, risk stratify, diagnose, and then treat patients who've suffered COVID-19 vaccine injuries and disabilities. Sadly, many have died, and it's too late. We clearly need autopsies on those dying, particularly where there's no other explanation for their death outside they've received a vaccine even years ago. It's only with these measures will the world begin to recover the giant insult to the health of mankind and begin to recover and move forward. I think, unfortunately, longevity as well as fertility and continued disability will grow larger if these steps are not taken. I'm Dr. Peter McCullough, practicing internist cardiologist, president of the McCullough Foundation, and the chief scientific officer of the Wellness Company in the United States. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you very much for sharing your perspective. Everyone is looking very intensively to what is happening to the US and the new government. So we are happy that you shared your experience and your science with us. So thank you for all speakers for sharing your perspective. It was an enlightening overview. The journalists have now the opportunity to ask their questions. So please, as journalists, tell your name and organization and the name of the speaker you want to ask the question, please.
Sorry, I have a question. I don't know how to find the raise hand option, so it's my fault. Actually, this is a question to all participants. I do not want to name anyone personally. My name is István. I'm from Hungary, from Magyar Jelen, and I want to ask because in Hungary we are facing a lot of damage regarding the child vaccination, and I heard that some vaccines made for children are maybe switched to mRNA. And my question would be, is there any experience with that worldwide, that some vaccines changed to mRNA already, or do you have any information about that the original normal vaccines are being changed? Thank you.
Thank you, Mashi. So we have the question is open for everyone who feels that he has the information about that. Please just.
I don't have information about them being introduced without knowledge. That may be happening in Hungary, but certainly in the trials, there's been an RSV vaccine trial using mRNA technology, and they had to drop the trial for under 2s and for over 80s, interestingly, which are the two groups at highest risk from RSV, because there were such severe side effects. That's all I would say so far.
Any additional comment?
Yeah, that is as the previous, as Dr. Ross said, the RSV, but this is not for children. It's definitely, it was 2 weeks ago a conference in Hungary for pediatricians, and they've, on a slide I've seen there is RSV for adults, mRNA. This is which is the second mRNA vaccine, which is officially mRNA, one of the RSV, but this is for adults. For children, officially there is no. I was searching because of the Hungarian situation. Even the BCG is not officially, and I don't know if it is or something, some other thing has been changed regarding the BCG, which makes us suspicious, even doctors with whom I work. This is the hemangiomas.
Okay.
These. So
may I add one thing? So I don't know about specifically the question, but I would like to tell the journalist that in Brazil, the Brazilian children, the anti-COVID is compulsory, so they receive mRNA vaccine. So this is so I don't know in the other countries, and but this is the news, the information that I have.
Thank you, Laura. Unbelievable. Yeah. So we move on with Amrit, Germany.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm from Slovenia, and I follow this COVID crisis since the beginning. And we have now a private media that I founded, Triglav Media, and we are informing in Slovenia our society that actually everything is a big fraud. And we have a small political party. We will give now the request that mRNA technology is stopped. But I would like to put something out which I think is important. I published 7 articles on statistical analysis of COVID vaccinations effectiveness. The articles of the Watson that they saved 40 million lives, it's an absolute lie. There is no mathematics there. There is no statistics there. The recent article of Professor Ioannidis, he confirmed that they saved these 40 million lives in 21, has no mathematics and has no statistical background. So I think that you doctors should put a little bit more energy also in this, let's say, mathematical aspect, because from the point of mathematics, I know how to calculate everything. It's an absolute fraud. It was just one thing more. It was never proved that the vaccinated part of the population has lower mortality. I calculated myself on the base of data from England that in 21 the mortality of the vaccinated was higher for 14.5%. So the whole story of saving lives, it's mathematically fraud. And it's not a question if the mRNA vaccination did more harm or did some profit to the health. Not a single person. They vaccinated 4 million people. Not a single person was cured with this mRNA technology. Because as one of the relators said before, they did research 20 years on rats with mRNA. They die, all of them.
Amrit, this is your question. What is your question?
My question is that why medical doctors, which you deal with the damage that is somehow clinically proven, why you don't put a little bit of more attention in mathematics? Because I'm a physicist, and mathematicians and physicists, we prove it that everything from the point of mathematics is fraud. I think that if you will take this knowledge and these results, you will have more power. That's my question.
Okay, thank you. Engelbert, is it about this question, right? Okay, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a mathematician. I'm not a physician. And I want to comment on this, and you are absolutely right. And what we see since years is that those studies claiming that millions of lives have been saved are only modeling studies. And these are models with unclear input. And there is a rule in modeling. The rule says garbage in, garbage out. And this is here the case. And of course, there are some other studies regarding the lives that have been saved. They refer to the real world data, and but those studies are not accepted by the authorities, and that's the problem. They use just the unrealistic modeling studies with not realistic input. That's the point here I want to mention.
Yep.
What
one additional question, Amrit? Okay.
If we would take this really seriously, we could go to the court, because the science was misused, mathematics was misused to cover the crime. You know, you can ask if you have, let's say we have on every university, we have a professor that is good in statistics. Okay. I send my papers to the 5 prestigious statistic professors in Slovenia. Never, ever somebody answer. Because if you have PhD in statistics, you see that everything is just a crap. So you need this article, it's a total crap. Watson article is a total crap, you know, and nobody is exposing this, because these people should go on the court, because they are hiding the biggest crime in the history of mankind. They are hiding. They are saying we saved 14 million lives. But these lives are not there.
Yeah.
They are not the statistics. They are not there.
Just to add, we in Germany we had some mathematical professors from different universities. They tried, and then Max Planck Institute and other institutes coming and saying, "Oh, there's a small mistake. There's a small mistake." So that is just to tell you, even if professors are saying this is a fraud or this is not correct, they try to push it away. And so, yes, of course, it is one argumentation we need in front of the court, the numbers, and we did already. So Tom Lausen, for example, is here with Professor Reitzner, Professor Kubantner, Professor Dierich, and Professor Konstantin Beck from Switzerland. So they are all connected in my book also. So I'm well connected with them. And it is, as you said, the numbers are clear, but they have no effect on the political decision makers. So I think the problem is behind that. But yes, we have to move on. There are other hands on it. Alexandra, please.
Yes, hello everybody. Thank you that I'm allowed to ask questions. I'm Alexander from Austria, and today I'm reporting for the news outlet Heinz.media from Germany, but I will also share to other news outlets anywhere in Europe. So I don't like unilateral talks among people who think the same thing. And since I think a lot like all of you, I let my questions prepare by someone who doesn't. And this is an artificial intelligence. Actually, I used ChatGPT, told it about today's conference, and let it prepare 6 questions that should hypothetically reveal that all of you are unserious and cannot be trusted. The first question of ChatGPT goes to Peter McCullough. It says, if vaccinating during a pandemic causes more viral mutations, how do you explain that variants like Delta and Omicron emerged before mass vaccination campaigns began, and that countries with higher vaccination rates, like South Korea and Portugal, saw fewer new variants afterward?
Yes, difficult question.
GPT posed. Can I?
Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when we initiate our campaign against the amendments to OMS regulation, you know, the IHR, and we went to ChatGPT at the very early beginning, he explained all the things that we were saying, everything everything we were saying was told by ChatGPT. So the ChatGPT was perfectly aligned with our thinking. Then, because maybe we were the only one giving this information, even the mainstream didn't speak about these amendments. Now, if you go to ChatGPT, of course, change the story, because many people start to think to speak about. So I don't know if I made myself clear actually, but ChatGPT harvests what is the most popular thinking. Is the popular thinking was from one side, ChatGPT report one that one and not the other one. So okay, that's what I wanted to give my experience.
Okay, thank you. So, Dr. Ross, is it for answering this question, please? Who is Dr. Ross or?
Well, yes, I was only going to say to Alexandra that for Omicron, that variant came in long after the vaccines were rolled out in UK. I don't know about other countries.
Yes.
And I heard Bill Gates actually saying that Omicron was the best vaccine out because, of course, it was giving people lots of natural immunity, and it was the worst for his profits because it made people think, do you know what, we don't need to get vaccinated at all. Delta, I think, in the UK came in just around the time when the vaccines were first being rolled out. And our death rates in autumn 2020, not surprisingly, death rates always go up for viral illnesses in the autumn, and it started going up for COVID, as you might have expected. You looked at the shape of that curve coming up, and then suddenly it did a very acute rise, and that was at the time when the elderly were first getting offered the COVID vaccine. And one of the big problems for us was that they counted you as vaccinated only 2 weeks after your second dose, that you were then fully vaccinated. And in many of the studies up until that point, the results were included as unvaccinated, which wasn't true because you'd had your first dose. And the problem, which was again well shown in the studies before rollout, and it was confirmed by our Public Health England, was that you have an increase in COVID in the first week after vaccination, around 5 to 10 days, 5 to 7 days, the white cell count drops and you have an increase in COVID. So if you count those COVID cases as unvaccinated, you give a completely false apparent efficacy to the vaccines. So I think there was, frankly, a fraudulent approach to how they defined the efficacy. And I think a lot of those early deaths were probably COVID. They were labeled as COVID, but they were actually vaccine-related deaths.
We have to say that, especially when ChatGPT, I often have this topic that if you don't prove it, what they are saying, it's really a big mess what they are building up. So it has really to be checked before we go for that ChatGPT idea. Paul Cullen and then Alexandra Henrion. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, nobody is arguing that, just to address the question, nobody is arguing that the virus doesn't mutate even if it's not vaccinated. The point that Peter McCullough was making is that if you vaccinate into a pandemic, you increase the evolutionary pressure on the pathogen. And so that, you know, that there's no actual, that's not a contradiction, you know, because the virus is going to mutate under natural conditions anyway, and particularly if we assume that this is a virus that didn't develop through natural means, that was developed in a laboratory, you would expect it to revert more or less to natural type as time goes on. So that's actually not a contradiction.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Alexandra.
Yes, and I would add to what Peter just said that one of the reasons those variants changed completely the nomenclature of the variants changed was because we wanted to hide from which country they came from. Omicron came from South Africa, and in South Africa, the vaccination took place very early on, back in 2020. So before the rollout of the vaccination campaign, because they had wild campaign of clinical trials that I reported on because they were described by Reuters, and in fact I was fact-checked to say that I was wrong, although it was reported by Reuters. And each time there was a variant, it was in countries that they already had campaign of whether clinical trials, so-called, and so the pressure, what we see about, what we know in science about the pressure and the appearance of a variant did occur.
Thank you. So we go to the next question. Alexandra, is it? I think because of the time, we are now at 5 o'clock. Alexandra, you have another additional question, and then we have Francois and Amrit, okay? And then let's...
Okay, so I will limit myself to 2 more questions, which I believe are the crucial ones. First question to anyone who wants to answer it. Your conclusions diverge sharply from over 1,000 independent studies and every major health association worldwide. What specific methodological flaws do all of those groups share that your analysis don't?
Okay.
Which analysis? All our analysis?
About the mRNA safety.
So I will speak on my behalf. Each time I sent a paper, it would be rejected because they didn't want a different voice in the scientific paper. So this is a big bias and a big flaw of whatever the paper have been, put up on the market. And the other thing is that they have been put in on the journals because they all shared this sentence saying it has been a wonderful thing that those vaccines, and you had to say that, otherwise you were not published. I call this a bias.
Thank you. Ross, and I think also Gerald Dieker can speak about Germany and the Paul-Ehrlich-Institut. Yes. Ross, please.
Well, yes, I was going to confirm what Alexandra was just saying about the publication bias, which is huge, and also the availability of the raw data, which again has been really problematical. So we, for example, in the UK, we showed that there was a significant rise in mortality in boys aged 15 to 19, just at the time when they were starting rolling out the vaccine to children. We went to the High Court in the Strand, and we had, because we went for a judicial review, the Office for National Statistics was obliged to make a response. Up till then, we got no replies from anything. So we went to court, and in their reply, they acknowledged that our statistical analysis was correct and that there was a statistically significant rise in death rate in that age group. But they would not investigate because they said it wasn't a strong enough signal. They would investigate when there was a stronger signal. They would not let us have the data because they said it was confidential. We could only say, how many children do you want to die before you consider that a strong signal? And I think if you look at other vaccines or other drugs over the years, most drugs have been withdrawn for far less deaths than have been reported into the national, acknowledged deaths. Many countries have said how many deaths their regulators have actually acknowledged. Dengue vaccine pandemics, all these, pandemics was withdrawn after, neurological damage, but not deaths like this. And it just feels as if this whole thing is too big to fail, like the banks.
Is it, Francois, sorry, you had the hand up. Is it about this question or?
Yes, sure. It's about all questions, you know. So you're all doctors. So you know the number one for healing people is to make an anamnesis. So let's not just face the number they manipulate, because we have to come back to the causa causorum and make people remember how many times they've been cheated and tricked by the same ones, you know. So we have to use also history and our memory. Let's remember them, the tobacco documents, you know, Robert Proctor of Stanford, that showed us the tobacco industry ordered dozens of studies proving that tobacco is not damaging health. This is in all the mainstream newspapers. After, there is a power of the witnesses, you know, because they touch the hearts, and this is reality. Making people witness on adverse events of COVID vaccines is really very, very, very important. And this can change history, make them witness in the streets where all people go and discover this. Some days ago, we were in front of the Justice Court of Grenoble. Some people tried seeing us with the portraits of the victims, and they wanted to speak at the microphone. And many people filmed and shared this, you know. About justice, what has been said about justice and statistics, you know. In France, the judges are nominated by the President of the Republic and had his campaign financed by McKinsey, and also that made big contract between Nestle and Pfizer. So I don't know what we made an action in law, but let's not remember this. We have to multiply the angles. And to end with this, you know, so let's be visible and let's speak directly, openly to the people, because the number will be able to open the eyes to the people. And this is what we want, even if we don't manage in demonstrating, because everything is, everything is manipulated, and the medias are so, okay? Let's touch the large audience and let's protect people in the streets by protecting them. They will change even if we don't know this, and we will save many lives. We can be sure we've saved many lives of people we will never know. Thank you.
Thank you, Francois. So, Paul Cullen, you have an answer for that question especially.
Just, I mean, we know, for example, from the protocols of the Robert Koch Institute in Germany, which is the NIH of Germany, a whistleblower released the protocols of the scientific body that was advising the government during the entire Corona episode. And it turned out that the expert scientists working for the government internally were saying the same things that we were being criticized for when we said them publicly. And we know this as a fact. So you know, there's such a tremendous bias on particularly the Lancet, New England Journal of Medicine. Really, the pillars of scientific publishing have been proven to have published a number of fraudulent papers. You know, there was this Surgisphere thing very early on where the data from Africa was completely faked, and that was published in the Lancet. It was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. You know, and even months, the journals resisted for months retracting papers like this. So what we actually have is a crisis of science and a crisis of scientific and medical publishing. And this makes, you know, so actually the well of scientific knowledge has been poisoned. And this is actually what we're facing right now. So you know, in Germany we have the whistleblower who produced the protocols from the Robert Koch Institute, but it's the same in every single country. So the problem that we're facing here is a much deeper problem than just the COVID problem. It's a problem, you know, how do we know what data we can actually trust from what is being published? Because these journals, particularly the most important journals, have been shown to have been fraudulent. You know, and not just once, but several times, and not just a mistake, but systematically. So I think that's the nature of the problem that we're facing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Professor Cullen. So next question is from Amrit. Please, a question as journalist.
I would like to answer this last question. I studied myself for 37 countries the graph of the intensity of vaccination, and I compare this graph with the intensity of mortality. And for 37 countries, the more they vaccinated, the more damage the mRNA technology has done to people. Alexander, this, you check our world data, Alexander Ehrlich, you check that. You forget about GDP. Check our world data. Take whatever country take. The graph of the intensity of vaccination you have for every day, how many people they vaccinated in Austria, in Slovenia, in Croatia, and then you compare with the graph of mortality. I developed a mathematical algorithm on this. For every country in this world, it's mathematically valid. The more they vaccinate, the more people die. That's the end of story of your questions, Alexander, because you forget about GDP. GDP is programmed to lie, to make a depopulation via medical science and medical care. That's the fact.
Okay. Thank you. I also proved that with the Eurostat and DC data from Europe. It's very clear. I can support your opinion, yes. Dr. Alexandra Henrion?
It's a fact.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, talking about facts, a very prominent demonstration is the vaccination that took place in islands that claimed to be zero COVID. So because they closed the borders, such as Mauritius, they had indeed zero COVID until they started vaccinating. And then you had a rise in COVID and in COVID death as well. And you take any sort of island, whether Fiji, whether I can't recall because I had done them all, but basically every island where you could see that there was no COVID, you would start vaccinating and you would always get the same behavior, meaning increase in COVID and in COVID death specifically. So no bias, no nothing, no.
Okay, thank you very much. So last question, Alexander, then we have to finish the press conference.
Yes, thank you. Actually, many of you have answered another question, which I did not even ask. Let me just ask it so we can later cut it out and, your answers are already given. The question was, you've previously published in major journals. Have you submitted your recent vaccine safety analysis for peer review in comparable outlets? And if not, why not? This question is already answered. I just wanted to have it here to cut it later.
Yes.
The last question, which is not answered. What kind of evidence would change your view on mRNA safety? Is there any way that could potentially make you change your mind and recognize it as a safe and promising technology?
Thank you for the question. It's a good question. Any other comments from someone?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
Oh, what has to be done by the pharmacy, for example, or the institutions that we say, okay, now we are committed to mRNA vaccines. We see, yes, they are safe and they are effective.
I think we would all have desperately wished to be wrong. Yes. I cannot think of anything better. I have friends, children who've been vaccinated. I would love to think that there was no danger to this. What would convince me? Well, one would be, we would have to have all the proper data which was linked, because, we can say there's an increase in cancers after there's an increase in vaccines, but then all we'll say is correlation doesn't equal causation. So you have to look at the individual level data, and they will share that data with certain institutions, but not with others. We, with the Heart Group, are currently on a court trying to get access to data so we can look. Then, of course, you then find yourself inevitably saying, yes, but have they altered the data since we asked for it? Because that's the level of distrust we've reached, if we're honest. And then I would look at other things like one of the German colleagues earlier was mentioning the histochemistry tests. I have a friend whose son got age 30-something, got colonic cancer. He was in the States, and she managed to get histology sent to Arne Burkhardt's lab, and they found the tumor full of vaccine-derived spike protein and not disease-related spike. Why are these not being done in countries across the world? Why have we no lab in the UK which will do this test? It's cheap, it's easy. I found a lab here who was willing to set it up, but their chief exec said, no, you can't do that. And so I would demand to see histology on all the patients who have died, looking at actual, is the myocarditis, is the pericardium, or etc. infiltrated with spike protein. So until you can show me that would certainly convince me. If you could show me for people who've died, but they really have no evidence, rather than that nobody has looked for evidence, because I think that's the problem we're faced with. It's saying that there is no evidence is being taken as meaning there is evidence of no harm, whereas what they're really saying is we haven't looked for harm, so we can't show you the evidence.
Don't do the right trials. Why if they have trials, clinical trials, phase 2 went wrong, they pass to the clinical trials 3. Why they don't do active pharmacovigilance? Why they make so difficult to report adverse event in the passive surveillance? So I would like to ask the companies these questions.
Okay, thank you. Paul Cullen, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, this technology, was originally designed as a cancer therapy. Okay, we have to remember this, and even as a cancer therapy, it was never safe enough that a product emerged from it, okay? And there might be some use for this technology at some stage if you have some kind of severe inoperable cancer where the prognosis is dire. But this is, I mean, we have to imagine what we had a technology that was designed as cancer therapy that was never safe enough to be used in cancer. And then we had this magnificent idea to vaccinate billions of people around the world, including children, and pregnant women and so on, and this is just so completely mad. Okay, so I think what it might have some role in a very, very closely monitored research setting for inoperable end stage cancer. That maybe there, but that's about it.
Also, still about this question, we need to really shorten the time. So after this, I think Wiltrud Schwedtje is also a journalist, maybe have a last question, but really let's finish now our conference. Eva, please. And then Helmut.
This is just to answer the mRNA technology. So there is mRNA technology, and then there is the mRNA vaccine technology, where we have the lipid nanoparticle, and the mRNA vaccine toxicity is described in, anyway, in the book, which I put in the comments. I translated it to Hungarian, and it's translated into 6 languages. Which details the science of the mRNA vaccine technology. And if someone can write a book about this thick with all the proof that this is not toxic, then I might consider it. Otherwise, it's clearly declared what is the problem with it. And the mRNA technology as a cancer therapy, it doesn't have the lipid nanoparticle around it, so it can be targetedly injected into the cancer, around the cancer cells, unlike with the vaccine, where, about 20 times it was said what are the problems with it. It goes everywhere, no switch, off switch, etc. Well, I'm not a doctor. Because translated this book, I learned quite a bit about this technology.
Okay, thank you. Helmut?
There are two possibilities in order to trust the next candidate. One is to do as we did with the anti-COVID compounds, namely do not any animals and experiments in animals and go into man and see what happens. This we have already done. We shouldn't redo that. But if we had done the whole program and in the right species with the right doses and the right length, then we could have foreseen or discovered practically all the side effects that we have seen now in man. So let's do the right experiments in the right animals. There is need of a great brainstorming before. They did just do simple experiments in order to get off the hurdle to the market. So this is not the way of doing it. Let's use the animals because the animals are there and we can use them and they can give us answers.
Okay. Christina and Gerald?
Yes, I would say that to prove something is really safe and effective, we really need to do studies and preclinical studies and then clinical studies and not put the phases of the clinical studies together because normally you have like one after another. The problem is that we have so much data about this mRNA technology that says that is really harming, that it would not be ethical to do clinical trials about those products. So I think that the big problem in this is that the pharmaceutical companies are really trying in every way. We've talked about that legally they are vaccines, but actually from the biological mechanism, they're not vaccines. They should be doing all the procedures as pharmaceutical products, like normally it should be done. But of course, it costs a lot of money. So they try in every way to not do all the trials that they should do to prove something safe and effective. So we really have a big problem in this, and this occurs also other pharmaceutical products. So it's not only these vaccines. It's in a lot of products that we really need to be critical about the studies that they present us.
Thank you. Gerald?
We should keep this interesting question in mind for our discussions with politicians, and we should switch the question into, well, what could politicians convince that mRNA vaccines are dangerous, especially because they don't want to listen?
Yeah, and to add, that's why we did the moratorium like we did. We have 4 pages and there are 14 theses. So if this is positive answered, so we would say, whoa, okay, now it's clear, it's safe and it's effective. But any of these questions is answered negatively. So, and we are saying, okay, we have data about it. We would like to understand the other data. Let's come together, share our numbers, share our mathematics, share our knowledge about biological process, molecular biological processes. And then we have a compromise or find out the truth. Let's see. But we cannot see this dialogue. So we have to, on the one hand, be with the people, as we already heard here, to tell them how dangerous it is. On the other hand, we have to go to the politicians and also to the scientists to get more and more scientists that they know. But to be honest, it is a big surprise for me that the evidence is so high and so less people want to know about it. So that is the problem. But of course, we are still open, really open for other and new knowledge we would share. And there are good studies also that are giving other hypotheses And we have to go deeper into the numbers. That is the result, what we have seen. So last question from Wiltrud, please.
Yes. First, my name is Wiltrud. I'm a German journalist living in Spain and writing for the Swiss media platform Transition News. And first, I would like to say that it was wonderful to have you, to listen to all of you, because due to my work, I know that this fight against this crime against humanity is going on worldwide already years. And but it's great to have you all in one space. So thank you, MWM, for that. And I would like, this is a general question, because now it's already more than 5 years that we are running against walls. What is your personal motivation that you still carry on?
Thank you very much. Good question. And I think here a lot of people who wasted their time, not wasting their time, but they took their time for it. So who would like to answer? Why do you think it makes a difference what we are doing?
And it makes sense to carry on.
Yeah.
Because after all these tears and disappointments we had to go through in the last years, you know, where's the energy coming from?
Yes, thank you. Alexandra and then Helmut.
Well, I think I answered in my presentation, my short talk, is that I think that standing on our humanity, on the point of view of our humanity, we have to stop this genetic alteration of human being. So if I was losing the energy to fight for protecting the genetic inheritance of human, I think there would be a big trouble. So therefore, I find the energy to stand up and fight again and again.
Thank you, Alexandra. Helmut, please.
The energy comes from the fact that I have children and grandchildren, and I cannot leave it up to them to fight, to continue with the fight. So we have to set the ground, and then they will have to continue.
I would say the same. You cannot unsee what you have seen. And it is, you know, there are days when I think we just all want to go off and forget about this and just go on a long holiday or something, but I can't. I think we have to carry on. And hopefully we are winning more people around. I think much more people, many more people are realizing that they have been duped, and it's easy to be fooled. It could happen to any of us, I think, but it's how we reach out and help people to understand the seriousness of what's going on.
Yes. Thank you.
Finally, truth will win. With Contergan, thalidomide, it took about 4 years, and this time it will take about 6 to 10 years, I would guess.
Thank you. So from my side, I can say this for me. Why are we humans here on Earth? Why is I'm a person that says I have a soul. So then it's depending on if they take the body, okay, but we have to save really humanity and the human genes, and it's a war against artificial parts. So we have to stay with humanity, and therefore there's no alternative than to do it. Because when this mRNA vaccines are coming in this row, how they are planning it, it is really has a big impact of humanity at all. And therefore we have to move on and to find more people that are supporting that. So we come to the end with our conference. Thank you very much. It was a fantastic event. It is the highest threat humankind ever has faced. But the good message is everyone can do something against it now before it is pushed into markets. So subscribe to Stop mRNA Vaccines on mwm-proof.com. So there, just give you, that is the easiest way to give your subscription to your signature. And others, if they want to support, really to support by communication, be if you have influencers, if you know about how to share the knowledge in social media or somewhere else, please let us know. And I would like to thank all helping hands of the co-organizers from MWGFD in Germany, the International North Group, the World Council for Health, the Gesellschaft for Health in Austria, and my team from CSmedicus.org that all helped very much to make this possible here. So we wish you all a wonderful evening, night, or morning, depending on your continent. So thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
All the best. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.